Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com again. And although I did release the Eliphas Levi book, tarot deck by Benedetti yesterday, and I think I'm going to be releasing this the next day, I was looking at it for the first time. So as I was revealing it to you is when I was looking at it and seeing it. And so I wasn't real eloquent or spontaneous with my words because I was learning at the same time as I was laying it out. So I rewatched it, and even though I've already released it, I kind of feel like, oh, it's so boring. It put me to sleep, and it's over an hour. Now it's filled with good information. It's got a lot of information in it. So it's not like it's without information, but it's like one of these lectures you get from somebody, and it's great information, and you gotta like write down everything, but it's boring as shit, you know? So I thought that I would do a second video, which may not be full of as much information, so stuff is going to be left out of this video. So, there was a few tidbits about my life and stuff like that were included in that video. So I don't want to deprive anybody from looking at it because there may be some fun points to learn, but I'm just going to try to be a bit more succinct with this deck. Now, as I mentioned, this is a beautiful deck published by Benedetti. It is the personal tarot deck of Eliphas Levi. It means that this is a deck that was in his possession that he used. He did not create it as far as drawing all the cards. He did draw 8. But this was the tarot deck that he used. I mean, he was an occultist. A magician, ceremonial magician, who did use tarot as part of his magic. So despite the fact that he might not have created his own deck, he had a tarot deck. And this is the deck that was left in, which was housed in the museum. What was the name of the museum? The playing card in Issy-les-Moulineaux. I'm sure I'm not saying it right. I know I'm not saying it right. But the playing card museum in Issy-les-Moulineaux. Anyway, this is the actual deck that came down into the museum that was owned by him, and it was contained in 2 books similar looking to this that had pages. They were like photo albums, except that on each, that we would call a photo album, obviously. In the 1800s, there was no photo albums, but it was prepared in a way that each card had its own page. So, and each of these cards has Eliphas Levi's own notations. So as he was learning his what tarot meant to him, he wrote words down and symbols and stuff on these cards. And so that's what these cards have on them. Quite all of them have a writing on them. Now, the base deck was 78 cards by Bernardine Suzanne, I think from the 1830s. I think it was I'm not sure the date. 1839, I think. It rings a bell. So there was that beautiful deck by Bernardine Suzanne, which I had wanted to I was trying to purchase myself about 5 years ago, maybe 5 to 10 years ago. I wanted a copy and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find a copy. So it's just really fortunate for me that the Eliphas Levi deck, the base 78 cards, is the Bernardine Suzanne deck. And in addition to the 78 cards of the Suzanne deck, we have 8 cards that Eliphas Levi drew himself. 6 of them coincide with Triumph cards, and 2 seem to be independent of the Triumph cards. I can't associate them with any Triumph card. Although I have, if I had to, make a guess of where he would have applied these 2 cards, I do have my guesses, but I can't say that that's fact, and I'll get to that when I show the deck. And then of all the additional cards, so there were 8 that he created, and then another 14 which came from another source. I'm not sure whether I think these might have been images that he drew himself or that he gathered from other esoteric writings. You know, I'm not really sure. They could have been from the Spanish. They could have been from, some of them could have been from Spanish. Aluette, was that the name? But then there's 4 that I just can't connect to any cards. So let me show you what I did find. And I'm going to use the 14 cards where I don't know where they're from. These aren't the 8 that Levi drew himself. These are other cards from either Levi or from another source altogether. I don't think he drew these cards, so I think these cards are from another source, but I can't say what the source was. There may be some reference to some Spanish cards. Okay. For the 2 cups, I think it's possible that we can say that that's representative of 2 cups. Which is interesting that there's like a cow in repose, or in a prone position rather, and then 2 cups that have storks on the, you know, it's kind of weird. Because we don't see anything like that in the Bernardine or Suzanne deck with the same pip. So I don't know if Levi took the Bernardine deck and then just pulled out the cards and replaced, for example, the 2 of Cups with this. Maybe he didn't use this at all. Maybe he replaced this pip card with this. Or maybe he used them in it too, you know, for a total card deck of 100. Here we have 3 of Cups with a bare-busted woman in the primary cup, and then two storks and the others. Again, does this card replace this card in the Pip series, or is it in addition to? You know, something about the way these look is I have some Spanish cards, and I have some cards from Granada and Alhambra when I was there years ago, and the cards are reminding me of this, or these are reminding me of that. So I'm wondering if some of these cards might be Spanish in origin. Okay, now here we have a card with an eagle, which kind of seems like a coin card. Although, is it possible it was the Wheel of Fortune? You know, I don't know. Unitas, very versatis. So, I don't know. And I'm not really sure what it suggests, but it does look an awful lot like an Ace of Coins. However, since I don't know it truly represented the Ace of Coins, I wouldn't pull this one out, you know, to use. I would probably keep this in the deck along with this, because it may fall in line with other cards like the Wheel of Fortune, you know, or any of the disc cards, you know, the coin cards. So I probably would keep this in, maybe not knowing exactly what it represents, but not really caring, just using it as a visual. Okay, another one, we clearly have 5, hold on. Oh, this is 4 coins. Right, we have 4 coins, and then this special symbol. So again, did this card replace this card, or did both of the cards appear in Levi's deck? 5 coins, and this larger 5th coin has a pair of lovers. And so, you know, if you see, you know, this image in the 5 coins, it would give a different interpretation than what we're accustomed to, wouldn't it? So it gives it like a different, that's when you read the deck, right? You can't ignore the story that is contained in this picture. So you read the picture. Okay, now I have cards that I'm not sure exactly which ones they relate to, but I'm giving it my best guess. Now we have this one, and I didn't do any translation of any words or anything like that. We have this one that has a unique Hebrew letter, which I'm not familiar with the Hebrew letters, so I'm at a disadvantage. And so when I'm trying to match some of these cards up with the other cards in the deck, I'm like trying to find cards that have the similar symbol, not because I understand what it is. I'm just trying to make a connection with the cards. And in the Bernardine Suzanne deck, I saw this same kind of image repeated, right? In reverse. The same image. So we have this curve, we have this center line, and then we have this other thing. So I think some of the connections, like to this shape, found in a certain, I don't know, in some cases it seems really forced, It's like when you're making the constellations, I really have to fill in a lot of the blanks to make some of these constellations look like what they say they are, right? And the same here. I think there's like some stretch of the imagination that, is taking place. And then here we have the Batelier that Levi redrew. This was the Bernardine. And then this is the one that he redrew, and he borrowed from the, one of the Italian decks of from 1600 Bolognese, whereby the card player has an audience of 4 individuals. I think there's 4 people. Yeah, has an audience of 4 people. Now, something that Levi did was that, he was the first person to do this. On the magician's table, he places the 4 suits. And you'll notice that the coin is a coin and not a pentagram. So it can't be said that the French occultist didn't know about the Italian tarot, for example, because this image is taken from a 1600s Italian deck. So he knew, right? And on the table, though, he replaced the Italian items, or the traditionally seen items, with the 4 suits, and he was the first person to do that. And again, they all have the similar image, the similar shaped letter on it. And then just to show modern day, from 1910, 1909, we have the magician where, again, we see the items from the suit, except that the coin became a pentagram. Okay, the next one. Let's see, am I sure? I'm not sure I'm sure. It does look like a royal image. And I think there is the word royal, or porte royal, or port royal on the bottom. So there's a suggestion of authority, right? Now we have this little shape here. And also this thing that looks like a 74, which it's not. I don't think so, but it's probably an astrological sign. So we see the same astrological thing in the same corner. And we have a notation on that card that matches this. So I have to assume that this card was representing the emperor. Again, do I take this card out to put this card in, or should I just leave them both in? I don't know. And then for the Rider-Waite-Smith fans, here is the same card. And, okay, moving along. Now, I don't know. This looks like a religious card because we have a religious hat. It's not the triple-tiered crown of a pope, but it is a high-ranking cleric, I would think. And then we see the columns, Aboa and Joaquim, I'm sure I'm not saying it right, but the BJ columns, we're used to seeing that, and some type of throne. Now this card is given number 15. I didn't pull the female Pope card. Let me pull it. Interesting. It's not the female Pope card. Despite not having the triple tiered crown for a Pope, you know, it is, like I mentioned, a high-ranking thing. But the symbol here, and it does look like some kind of royalty or somebody who's in a position of power, and, you know, in this case, religious, right? And it does say Hierophantus. It says in French, you know, the root is Hierophant, so you can tell that that's what it is. If I had looked at it a little more carefully, I would have seen that. And we also see this letter confirming that here. But then Levi replaced the Pope card with Jupiter. So did he prefer to use Juno and Jupiter to eliminate religious, you know, overt religious, you know, representation? I guess so. That's what it looks like to me. Although the Jupiter card doesn't have any corresponding Hebrew letter. I just don't see that it does. Okay, so that wasn't the female Pope, like I thought it might have been, because we see B and J, right? And in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, we see a crown that's not a triple-tiered crown, and we see the columns B and J. And, you know, the illusion, you know, the sense of a seated figure. So you can see why I would have thought, oh, that's probably the female Pope. But not so fast, Batman, because when you look at the card carefully, it says Hierophant. And then when you look at the Pope card, you do see the same Hebrew letter. Okay, next we have let me pause this so I don't spend so much time wasting your time. Now this one, the one that I would have thought would have been the Pope, as it turns out, is the female Pope, because they both have the same Hebrew letter. This shape here is a major part of this thing here. And we have the open book, we have the triple tier crown of a Pope. So it's interesting to me, and I'm not somebody who knows, you know, Levi's point of departure from, you know, but it's interesting to me that the three-tiered crown goes to the female and the female Pope, and that the crown of the Pope is depicted with a lesser design, with a crown that's designed for a lesser figure in the clergy, which is very interesting. So again, do we replace this with this and use this instead? Or we keep them both in? And then I think this is the symbol for, is that Taurus? That astrological? It looks like Taurus, right? Which is another reason why when I saw that and I saw the triple-tiered crown, that I thought it would have been the Pope, because I always thought the cultists associated the Pope with, well, I don't know, with, I don't know, like I can't recall off the top of my head, but it might have been Taurus, which is another reason why I thought maybe it would have been the Pope, but no, it's the female Pope. Okay, did I get all those? I think I did. So now it remain 4. Oh, here's the lever card. Here I think is the lever card. Oh, because this shape, this letter, matches the letter on the lever card. And then up here, it kind of looks like Fatal Attraction fatal attraction. That's what it looks like. Then there also seems to be a reference to Sagittarius, you know. So I don't get all those connections, but I do get the, you know, fatal attraction and the shape that he points out in the original design, which may or may not be a forced kind of thing. But in case we didn't catch it there, we'll catch it here, and we see it here. And I think that's it. Now there's 4 more, and I have no idea where they go. This one, and it seems to be a card that has a child infant on it. I thought maybe it was the death card, but as far as I can tell, I don't know. I can't rightly match it to any card. This one, I have no idea. That looks like a very scientific or like some kind of blueprint kind of plans, like for constructing something or building something, but I don't know which card it might have connected to. And then this one, which is a giant 5, you know, which references the pentacle and perhaps a miracle, magical words, you know, or phrases I'm not really familiar with. Then, in addition to those 14 cards, which you may or may not replace the Triumph card with, then there were 2 cards that Levi drew that don't correspond to any of the Triumph cards, and that's one for melancholy. And I thought maybe it could, you know, be connected to, you know, the Fool card, if you think of Fool as 0. But I think the Fool card in this deck, you know, it is 0. It's not 22. Because I saw this in, you know, mathematical equation up here, which is like 10 plus 10 times 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 equals 0 times x, which is 0. So this like really, I think it's kind of funny to have this long equation to mean emptiness or 0, you know, void, right? And then we have a sad figure. And if 0 equates to the Fool, I mean, could it have been a reference to the Fool card? I mean, might he have intended this for the Fool card? Or is this in addition? And I'm guessing that it's, you know, without hearing anything from any scholar otherwise, then I would imagine that this is just an additional card. But if you see it along with a card with a 0 in it, you know, or if there are other sad cards, you know, it could enhance the meaning of those cards. And then we have a card he drew called the Sphinx. And I don't know if this was in addition or if it was to replace one of the other cards. You know, the Sphinx is driving the chariot, so maybe it could be a reference to the chariot, or an alternate card for the chariot, or just an additional card. And if you got the chariot and you got this card, that would be some serious Egyptian magic, right? So now I'll flip the camera and I'll show you the remaining cards. Okay, so now this is the deck, and I've interspersed some of the replacement cards or some of the other cards that also mean the same as one of the tarot cards in there. And the only 4, or however many there are here, or maybe 6 that I can't figure out where they go. Now, and this is one that was designed by Levi, and it's the Sphinx. And the Sphinx, you know, has each of the 4 suit symbols, you know, got the key that may reference the key from like 1639 that had the word Torah written on it. So that could be an allusion to the Torah, Tarot, Rota inscription on a key, you know, and suggesting that the tarot is the key, like it's like, or the tarot is a key to a machine for unveiling the mysteries of the universe or something like that. But anyway, I think it's a lovely card. And, even if I can't figure out which card it relates to, if it's just its own card, I just keep it in the deck and use it. And, I don't know much about, Egyptian, magic, or the powers of the Sphinx or anything, but I know I would pay attention if I saw it in a reading. The second card I've already discussed, that we can't rightfully know where it belongs and could just be an additional card. This card, one of the additional cards, I don't know where it belongs. I do see a sword, and the swords didn't have any representation substitutes, so I'm wondering if that could have been one for the swords. This one, I can't figure it out. Neither can I figure out what those are. Okay. So we'll start with the Fool, which they have numbered as 0. The Fool has that letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And again, the base deck is the deck created by Bernardine Suzanne. Any words written on these cards, any notations or symbols, were all done by Levi's hand. Here we have the Magician card that Levi drew. And he borrowed from the Bolognese Italian tradition of having 4 people around the table. But as mentioned, he was the first to incorporate the idea of the 4 suits of a tarot deck to be represented on the table or at the table. And notice that it's coins and not pentacles. And here is the card from the Suzanne deck that Levi replaced with this one. So you see he removed the Lemniscate hat in favor of a more traditional one. Very interesting. Okay, this card. These are the 3 cards that could represent the female god or goddess or, clerical female. So we have this one, which doesn't have the same shape. Oh, no, this was the magician. Excuse me. This must have been the magician. This must have been along with the magician. No, I don't. This has a different shape. I put this in the wrong spot. It looks like it would belong to the magician, doesn't it? But I don't know. I'm so confused. I don't know where it goes. Okay, so then the 2 female, we have the Junon, and then we have the female Pope. And they don't have J's. Well, J must be for Jupiter, Junon maybe. But they both have this in common right here. Okay, I don't know if this is the female Pope. Okay, and here's another card for the female Pope. So, to me, it's like if he designed this card to replace this card, but this card's the card that's got all the stuff written on it in his handwriting. And then we have this card that is almost, maybe it's like a rough hand for him, or like a rough drawing, Like this card at a glance might have told him everything he needed to know about the female Pope or Junon. All the concepts in this card perhaps were represented in this card, and maybe this card or this set of cards that I can't figure out where they're from was notation to enforce, like maybe training wheels for him, like cheat sheet cards to reference the concept that he would find in this card. Oh, that's a possibility. That's a possibility. Okay, we have the Empress. And we have the Emperor. They share the same symbol. And they share this, as I pointed out earlier. And then we have Jupiter, which this is the image that Levi drew to replace the Pope. And then we have another instructional card to remind Levi of that this card possesses the attributes of this card. Although this card, to me, I would have identified as the female Pope for the reasons I mentioned that were, referenced in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck even. But this is like the perhaps cheat sheet version of this, the instructional card that reminds him that this card has this information, or this card has this information. Here's the Lover card and the instructional card, I suppose. I'm going to call these, or think of these as instructional cards. So these cards helped him relate to or understand at a glance what was supposed to be contained in its corresponding triumph. And here we have that symbol. Here we have the Chariot drawn by Sphinx, two Sphinx. And this would be Hermes Trismegistus. Okay, we have Justice. And we have the replacement that Levi drew himself for the Pope, for the Hermit. Now notice another thing, the convention here of wings and a column and a lame old man on crutches, that's an Italian thing. That's what you see in early Italian cards. So there's no way that, the French can deny, Italy as the origin source for tarot, because it's right here in a number of cards, right? So this is the card, the drawing he did to replace the TDM card of the same subject matter. Now, the letter here is not the same as what we see. So what the hey? Did I get this wrong? Is this not the Hermit? It sure looks like a hermit to me, but the reference, and it's got the same number, but the symbols are not the same. This is given the name Prudence. Well, they did do that, didn't they? They did some did associate prudence with the virtue of prudence with the elderly man. Okay, I don't know if there are any other replacements in here, except for some of the pip cards. Okay, so we have the Wheel of Fortune. And if you know any French, it'll be such a great advantage for you. And, I'm only going through this deck for the second time now as I do this video. So I have not spent hours looking up French words and phrases and stuff like that, which is a rabbit hole I'll go down, so I'll get my own understanding of what some of these cards mean. Notice that we have the angel Gabriel. Is that Gabriel representing the virtue of fortitude? I always thought Gabriel was the one who was blowing the horn. Lots of notations on the Hanged one. See, again, you know, the shape that they put on, like this is a shape that's inherent in the death card that, you know, connects it to whatever letter this is supposed to be. Like, I think some of these are stretched. It might, you know, if I'm just looking at it as a visual thing, I'm not making the connections, but, you know, they had an agenda and they needed to fit it to it, you know. And it's interesting because some of them do seem to be not bad matches. This Temperance card is beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful. Called the devil rather than a Baphomet. And I really thought that Levi is the one who developed the Baphomet, so I can't believe he had a tarot deck where he didn't replace the devil with the Baphomet. It just blows my mind. Unless somebody else developed the Baphomet and I've just been giving it credit to Levi all this time. Yeah, it's distinctly possible. Okay, we have the Tower. But certainly if you know French, you could get lost in all these words that would give a nuance, you know, to the meaning. And like, see here what I'm mentioning, like this shape is to be found in her body here. Like, I don't see it. You know, her arm isn't drawn that way. I mean, you really, you know, you got to stretch it, you know, saying, oh, that's her shoulder. You know, the only thing that I could see is like the swoop gesture of her arm, which ends here. It doesn't continue. So we're here, the crustacean. The crustacean doesn't have a wide tail. The crustacean goes down. You know, I could seeing the claws there, but then this shape here is just not consistent with what we see in the crustacean. Okay, this is the one that Levi drew, which obviously was inspired by the Vieille. And this was the Sun card that came with, you know, standard to the Bernardine Suzanne deck. And it's, okay, this letter is the letter P, and here the letter P is in reverse. But you can see the letter P, or something that looks like a letter P. The Judgment card is by itself. He did without any changes to it. Lots of words though. And I love that he recreated the World card, because if there's an ugly World card, it's the one in the TDM. I don't like the look of it at all. So I appreciate, again, a reference to earlier Italian decks that had more of a look. Like, now the symbols and stuff he put on this is like maybe different, but the design elements that this card features is reminiscent to me of the early Italian decks. And again, the association of this particular letter, because it could be found in the wreath, I think is a real stretch. And here we have the pip cards, which all seem to have numbers on them besides, you know, representing one sword. You know, they're all numbered. And I looked to see if it coincided with, you know, Atella's numbers, you know, because I know Atella renumbered the deck, but they're not the same. So unless it's the same idea of giving the cards different numbers, but perhaps Levi just assigned them different sequence than Atella did. I can't speak on that. I'm not an authority. I'm just thinking out loud. Now, one thing that you're not experiencing as I'm showing you these cards is how they feel. Now, you know, this is a Marco Benedetti deck, so you know that it's highest quality paper and construction. And you can feel it. You know, I shouldn't have waited 40 minutes to say that, but you can definitely feel the quality in these cards. And you can hear it. Yes, I most certainly will enjoy doing a reading with this deck, and I will do a reading in the next video. So here we have the Ace of Cups and shorthand notation to remind, you know, Levi what this card meant. Or maybe it was intended to replace that card altogether. I don't know. Same with the Three of Cups. We see a head here, a little face, a little female face. You know, maybe they went with that. Isis. So he wrote the word Isis in there. So those were pretty standard with TDM, and with the exception of having the numbers and some of his notations. There's my boyfriend. There's the Queen. Okay. So the colors are wonderful in this Suzanne. Okay, Ace. So even if you do speak French, you know, the notation is written maybe in an old kind of fashioned script. So I don't know, maybe it won't be so easy to read what the words are, all the words are, but and I don't know if this was for the Ace of Coins or if it represented a Wheel of Fortune. I don't know. This does have numbers that definitely have meaning in a word or phrase. I don't see any corresponding letter or marking on it. United. I don't know. Okay, the Two of Coins shows Bernardine, Suzanne, 1839. He's created a triangle, and then he drew a triangle in here with, you know, letters, Hebrew letters, and then Osiris is referenced. And whatever's written. Now see, this looks kind of like Southern Spanish to me, like you would find at La Alhambra, right? So that's the Four of Coins. The Five of Coins. The center medallion has lovers in it. And then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Valet, Knight, Queen, King. All the original Bernardine Suzanne cards. So there you have it. My next video with this deck will be to do some readings with it, and I'm definitely going to leave in. And I still haven't figured out what this card is. So if any of you, it looks like it looks like it should be the Magician, but it had a different. Yeah, it's got to be the Magician. Come on now. It's got a different symbol though. Oh, is it this symbol? I dismissed it because I thought maybe it was a different symbol. Yeah, because now this guy, his is like different looking. But, visually, this looks to me like it should be the Magician. So I apologize. I didn't seem to recognize it, but I think this is the Magician. The letter looks like it's drawn in reverse or drawn differently here. But I think because we have the symbols on the table, we have the lemniscate hat that he eliminates in his card, but is here in the TDM. So I guess that's definitely the cheat sheet card for remembering the information for the Batelier. So I forget what I was saying, but when I do readings, I'll have to decide ahead of time which cards I'll remove, or I may leave them all in. The only ones I think I probably will remove would be these 4, because I don't know what they reference, so I can't. The only thing I would get value from would be is if there was a couple of 5s and then this ended up showing up, I would say pay attention to the 5s or pay attention to the 7s. Maybe pay attention to the symbolism if I can understand it. Like this looks like an engineer or building something, constructing something. So I could figure that one out maybe. Maybe I would leave it in. But other than echoing 5, I don't know what else I would use that for. Nor this, nor this. If I knew what they were, or if I could identify what they were and relate them to the other cards, I would do it, and I would recognize, I would learn from it. But I can't figure it out on my own. So I don't know if I would leave these cards in the deck, but I would leave, I think, all the ones that I've shown that I could connect to the deck. I think I'll leave them all in. And, it should be an interesting thing. So I hope you stay tuned for that. I'd like to thank Marco Benedetti again for creating this extraordinary deck, making it available to us. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if he purchased this deck or if he purchased another original. But he at least got the rights to print them. And that's all I really care about. So Marco, thank you wholeheartedly for bringing this most historic deck to the forefront and for all of us to enjoy. And for those of us who've been looking for the Bernardine Suzanne deck, thank you for that too, because, that was an elusive deck for me for many years. And now I have both. Until next time, friends, peace, stay well, be kind, and do no harm.